You don't think about the math when you're going in, how many lives you're risking to save one, how the numbers don't add up, how rescue missions are suicide with paperwork. You just go. My name is Captain James Mitchell. I flew H-5 helicopters in Korea, search and rescue for the 3rd Air Rescue Squadron. From a small town in Oregon, learned to fly in the Army Air Forces during the tail end of World War II, never saw combat. Then Korea happened, and suddenly I was flying one of the most dangerous missions in the war. Air rescue in Korea, picking up downed pilots behind enemy lines, going into hot landing zones under fire, flying slow, unarmed helicopters into places that got fighter jets and bombers shot down. The H-5 was a good bird for what it was. Sikorsky design could carry maybe 3 people plus the pilot, cruising speed about 90 miles per hour. But it was fragile. No armor, no weapons except what the crew chief could fire out the door. One good burst of machine gun fire and you were done. We called ourselves the Flying Undertakers. Wasn't entirely a joke. I got to Korea in early 1952. The war had settled into a stalemate by then. The front lines were roughly along the 38th parallel, same place the war had started. Both sides dug in, fighting over the same hills and ridges month after month. The air war was different. We owned the skies during the day. Our fighters and bombers could hit targets all over North Korea. But the North Koreans and Chinese had anti-aircraft guns everywhere, and they'd gotten pretty good at using them. We were losing pilots, a lot of pilots. They'd get hit, bail out over enemy territory, and if we didn't get to them fast, they'd be captured or killed. That's where we came in, the rescue birds, flying unarmed helicopters into North Korea to pull pilots out before the enemy could get to them. The survival rate for downed pilots who got picked up by rescue was pretty good. The survival rate for rescue crews was less good. We lost 2 helicopters in my squadron before I even flew my first mission. Shot down trying to pick up a pilot near Pyongyang. All crew killed. Nobody talked about it much. What was there to say? We knew the job was dangerous. We knew the odds. We flew anyway because those pilots down there needed us. Because if you got shot down, you'd want someone to come for you, too. June 15th, 1952. I got the call for a rescue mission that I knew was going to be bad before I even took off. An F-86 Sabre pilot shot down north of the 38th parallel, deep in enemy territory, in a valley surrounded by hills where the North Koreans had heavy anti-aircraft positions. Everything about it said don't go. We went anyway. The call came through around 1400 hours. F-86 down. Pilot confirmed alive on the ground, transmitting on emergency frequency. His location was about 30 miles north of the parallel, in a valley the intelligence people called Flak Alley, because so many aircraft had been hit there. The pilot's name was Captain Robert Hutchins, 26 years old, from Texas, 3rd tour in Korea. He'd been strafing a supply convoy when ground fire got him. Managed to bail out, but he was down in bad country with North Korean and Chinese forces all around. I was on ready status, so I got the mission. My crew chief was Sergeant Mike O'Brien from Boston. Good man. Steady. Been flying rescue missions since 1951. We'd flown together for 3 months, and I trusted him completely. The weather was decent. Clear skies, good visibility. Would have been a beautiful day for flying if we weren't heading into one of the most heavily defended areas in North Korea. We had fighter escort. 2 F-86 would fly cover, suppress ground fire while we went in. Better than nothing, but fighters can't hover over you protecting you forever. They'd have to break off eventually. We took off at 14:30 hours. The H-5 climbed slowly, laboriously. Fully fueled and with equipment, we could barely manage 80 miles per hour. Every mission I was aware of how vulnerable we were, how slow, how fragile. The flight north took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of watching the landscape change from friendly territory to no man's land to enemy country. You could see the difference from the air. The southern side was green, cultivated, had villages. The northern side was cratered, burned, destroyed by years of bombing. The fighter pilots radioed the location. They'd spotted Hutchins. He was in a small clearing near a river, waving his orange signal panel. Good sign, meant he wasn't seriously injured, could move. Bad sign. There were North Korean troops moving toward his position from about a mile away. We had maybe 10, 15 minutes before they reached him. We're going in hot, I told O'Brien. Be ready. The valley came into view. Steep hills on both sides. The clearing was at the bottom, surrounded by trees. Terrible landing zone. The hills were covered with anti-aircraft positions. The fighters made a run first, strafing the hills, trying to suppress the anti-aircraft fire. I watched the tracers arc up toward them. So much fire. Too much fire. One of the F-86s got hit. Saw the smoke trail from his engine. He radioed that he was breaking off, heading back to base. Hoped he'd make it. The other F-86 stayed with us. Pilot's call sign was Eagle 2. He made another strafing run while I brought the H-5 down into the valley. The anti-aircraft fire shifted to us immediately. Tracers everywhere. I could hear the rounds going past the helicopter. Could feel the impacts when they hit the fuselage. O'Brien was firing out the door with his M1 carbine. Might as well have been throwing rocks for all the good it did, but it was something. I could see Hutchins now, running toward where I was going to set down. Behind him, North Korean soldiers coming through the trees, maybe 200 yards away. We're not going to have much time, I shouted to O'Brien. Just get us down, he shouted back. The clearing was small, barely room for the rotor diameter, trees on all sides. If I clipped a branch coming in, we'd crash. I set her down hard. The skids hit the ground, and I kept the rotors turning. Go, go, go. O'Brien jumped out, ran to help Hutchins. The North Koreans were firing now. I could see muzzle flashes from the tree line, bullets hitting the ground around the helicopter, hitting the helicopter. Every instinct screamed to take off, to get out of there before we got shot down. But O'Brien was out there. Hutchins was out there. You don't leave people behind. O'Brien got to Hutchins, and they started running back to the helicopter. The North Koreans were closing fast, maybe 100 yards now, firing as they ran. I saw O'Brien stumble, thought he'd tripped. Then I saw the blood. He'd been hit, leg wound. He went down hard. Hutchins grabbed him, tried to pull him up. O'Brien was screaming something. Couldn't hear it over the rotor noise and the gunfire, but I could see him pointing at the helicopter, telling Hutchins to go, to leave him. Hutchins wasn't leaving. He got O'Brien's arm over his shoulder, started dragging him toward the helicopter. The North Koreans were 70 yards away, 50. Too close, way too close. Eagle 2 made another strafing run. His cannon fire tore through the North Korean troops. Bought us maybe 10 seconds. Hutchins got O'Brien to the helicopter. I jumped out to help pull them in. O'Brien's leg was bleeding badly. Bullet had gone through the thigh, maybe hit the femoral artery. He was going into shock. Get in! Get in! I was screaming. We pulled O'Brien into the cabin. Hutchins jumped in after him. I ran back to the pilot's seat. The North Koreans were 30 yards away. I could see their faces. Young men, desperate, angry, firing at us. Bullets punching through the thin aluminum skin of the helicopter. I pulled collective, increased throttle. The H-5 lifted off, slowly, too slowly. We were overloaded. 3 men instead of 2. O'Brien's blood on the floor. The helicopter struggling. We cleared the trees by maybe 5 feet. A North Korean soldier threw a grenade. It exploded just below us. Shrapnel tore through the belly of the helicopter. Warning lights lit up the instrument panel. We're hit, I called to Eagle 2. Multiple hits. Can you make it? Eagle 2 asked. I looked at the instruments. Oil pressure dropping. Engine temperature rising. We were losing hydraulic fluid. The helicopter was shaking, vibrating wrong. I don't know, I said honestly. We limped south. 60 miles per hour. 40. The helicopter wanted to fall out of the sky. I was fighting the controls, trying to keep us in the air. O'Brien was conscious. Hutchins was trying to stop the bleeding, tying a tourniquet, talking to him, keeping him alert. O'Brien's face was white. Too much blood loss. "Stay with me, Mike," I heard Hutchins saying. "Stay with me." We're almost there. We weren't almost there. We were still 20 miles from the parallel. 20 miles of flying a dying helicopter over enemy territory. Eagle 2 stayed with us. Couldn't do much to help, but he stayed. That meant something. 10 miles out, the engine started making sounds it shouldn't make. Grinding, knocking. I was losing power. "We're not going to make it to base," I told Eagle 2. "I'm going to have to set down." "Copy that. I'll mark your position." 5 miles from the parallel, the engine ceased completely. Just stopped. The rotor was still turning from momentum, auto-rotation, but we were going down. I spotted a clearing. Rice paddy looked like. Might be ours. Might be theirs. Didn't matter. It was ground, and we needed ground right now. I brought us down hard. The skids hit mud. The helicopter tilted, almost rolled. But we were down. We were alive. I shut down the systems, looked back at O'Brien. He was unconscious. Hutchins was still working on him, still trying to stop the bleeding. "We need a medevac," I radioed. "Now. We need it now." Eagle 2 responded. "Already calling it in. Ground forces are 10 minutes out." 10 minutes. O'Brien didn't look like he had 10 minutes. I climbed back to help Hutchins. O'Brien's pulse was weak, his breathing shallow. He'd lost too much blood. "Mike," I said. "Mike, stay with us." His eyes opened, focused on me. He tried to say something. Couldn't. Just looked at me with this expression that said he knew he wasn't going to make it. "You did good," I told him. "You saved Hutchins. You did your job." He closed his eyes. His breathing stopped. Just like that. After everything. After getting Hutchins to the helicopter. After surviving the pickup. After crashing in the rice paddy. He died in the mud 5 miles from safety. The ground forces reached us 12 minutes later. Army infantry moving fast, securing the area. A medevac helicopter landed right after them. They took O'Brien's body. Took Hutchins, who was shaken but unhurt physically. Took me, even though I wasn't wounded. Standard procedure after a crash. They salvaged what they could from the H-5 and destroyed the rest. Couldn't leave it for the North Koreans to examine. Back at base, I had to write the report. Mission successful. Pilot recovered. 1 crew member killed in action. Aircraft destroyed. Successful mission. That's what they called it. We'd gone in to save 1 pilot. Lost 1 crew member and 1 helicopter doing it. The math didn't work out. It never worked out. But Hutchins was alive. That was supposed to make it worthwhile. I couldn't make it make sense. O'Brien was dead. Good man. Experienced crew chief. Survived dozens of rescue missions. Dead because he went out to help a pilot get to the helicopter. Hutchins came to see me the next day. Apologized. Said he was sorry about O'Brien. Said he wished he'd moved faster, gotten O'Brien back to the helicopter sooner. I told him it wasn't his fault. Told him O'Brien knew the risks. Told him what we told ourselves. That this was the job. This was what we signed up for. Didn't make it hurt less. They assigned me a new crew chief. Kid named Peters, 19 years old. Just arrived in Korea. First rescue mission. I couldn't look at him without seeing O'Brien. We flew more missions, picked up more pilots, some successful, some not. Lost another helicopter from our squadron in July. Entire crew killed. The numbers kept adding up. More rescues, more losses, more crew members dead trying to save pilots. I started having nightmares. Not about getting shot down, about O'Brien, about watching him die in that rice paddy, about the look in his eyes when he knew he wasn't going to make it. The flight surgeon noticed, called me in, asked how I was doing. I told him I was fine. He didn't believe me. Offered to ground me. Said I'd done enough missions. Said I could rotate to a training position stateside. I turned him down. What else was I going to do? Stop flying? Let someone else risk their life while I sat in safety? O'Brien didn't get that choice. None of the guys who died got that choice. So I kept flying. Through summer, through fall, picked up pilots, brought them home, lost crew members, kept the numbers in my head, even though I tried not to. By the time the war ended in July 1953, our squadron had flown over 900 rescue missions. We'd saved over 170 pilots and aircrew. We'd lost 9 helicopters and 14 crew members. 9 helicopters, 14 men, to save 170. Everyone said the math worked out, that we'd saved more than we'd lost, that the program was a success. Maybe. But I remember every face, every crew member who didn't come back, every mission that went wrong. O'Brien's face most of all. The armistice was signed July 27th, 1953. The war was over. Not won, not lost, just over. The lines stayed roughly where they'd been. All that fighting, all those deaths for a stalemate. I flew my last rescue mission 2 days before the armistice. F-84 pilot shot down near Khe Song. Clean pickup, no casualties, pilot safe. The way it was supposed to go. Should have felt like victory. Should have felt like we'd accomplished something. I felt empty. They sent us home in August, back to the States, back to normal life, back to a country that didn't really care about Korea. Wasn't like World War II. No parades, no celebrations. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the war was over and everyone could move on. I couldn't move on. I'd fly in my sleep. Dream I was back in the H-5, going into hot zones, picking up downed pilots. Sometimes the missions would go well. Sometimes they'd go wrong. Sometimes O'Brien would be there, bleeding in the back, dying again. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, hands shaking, unable to breathe. The VA called it combat fatigue. Said it would get better with time. Gave me some pills that didn't help much. I tried to keep flying. Got a job as a commercial helicopter pilot. Thought maybe if I kept flying, it wouldn't be so bad. Thought I could separate the war flying from civilian flying. Couldn't. Every time I lifted off, every time I flew, I'd start thinking about Korea, about rescue missions, about O'Brien, about all the crew members we'd lost. Had a panic attack in the cockpit 6 months after I got home. Had to make an emergency landing. Lost my commercial license after that. So flying was gone. The one thing I'd been good at. The one thing that had defined me. Gone because I couldn't separate it from the war. I talked to Hutchins a few times, the pilot we'd saved. He'd stayed in the Air Force, was flying fighters again. He thanked me every time we talked, said he owed me his life. I didn't want thanks. I wanted O'Brien back. Wanted all the crew members back. Wanted the war to have meant something. But it didn't mean anything. Korea was already being forgotten. The police action that wasn't quite a war. The conflict that ended in a stalemate. The war that most Americans wanted to pretend never happened. And we were just the guys who'd flown helicopters. Not as glamorous as fighter pilots. Not as important as bomber crews. Just rescue pilots. Flying unarmed birds into danger to save people. The math still didn't work out. 14 crew members dead. Was saving 170 pilots worth 14 lives. How do you calculate that? How do you make that equation balance? You don't. You just carry it. Carry the weight of the decisions. Carry the memories of the men who didn't come back. Carry the guilt of surviving when they didn't. O'Brien died saving Hutchins. That's what I told myself. He died doing his job. Died a hero. But he still died. Still ended up in a rice paddy 5 miles from safety. Still left a family back in Boston wondering why their son had to die in Korea. And I was the pilot who took him there. I'm recording this in 1975. 23 years since that mission. Since O'Brien died. Since Korea ended. I'm 47 years old. Haven't flown a helicopter since that panic attack in 1954. 21 years since I've been in a cockpit. But I still dream about flying. Still dream about rescue missions. Still dream about O'Brien bleeding in the back of the helicopter, dying while I tried to keep us in the air. The nightmares never stopped. Got less frequent, maybe. But they never went away. The VA calls it PTSD now. Different name for the same thing. Your mind breaking under the weight of what you've experienced. I never married. Tried a few relationships, but they didn't work out. How do you explain to someone why you wake up screaming? Why you can't hear helicopters without having a panic attack? Why you feel guilty every day for surviving when better men didn't? You don't. You just end up alone. I keep in touch with some of the other rescue pilots. We have reunions sometimes. Sit around, tell stories, remember the guys who didn't make it. It helps, being around people who understand. Who were there? We talk about the missions, about the successful rescues, about the ones that went wrong, about the crew members we lost. We don't talk much about whether it was worth it. That question doesn't have an answer we want to hear. Hutchins is still flying. Made full colonel. Has a good career. Sends me Christmas cards every year. Thanks me and everyone. Says he's alive because of that mission. I'm glad he survived. Really, I am. He had a family, had a life. He deserved to survive. But so did O'Brien. O'Brien deserved to go home to Boston. Deserved to have a life. Deserved more than dying in a Korean rice paddy at 23 years old. The medal citation said we were heroes. Bronze Star for me. Silver Star for O'Brien. Posthumous. They sent it to his family in Boston. His mother wrote me a letter. Thanked me for trying to save her son. Said she was proud of him. Said she knew he died doing something important. I couldn't write back. What was I supposed to say? That I was the one who flew him into that valley. That he died because I couldn't get the helicopter out fast enough. That the mission was my responsibility and I failed to bring him home. Some truths are too heavy to share with a grieving mother. I stopped flying. Stopped doing the one thing I was good at. Worked various jobs over the years. Factory work, warehouse work. Nothing that required thinking too much or being responsible for other people's lives. I couldn't handle responsibility anymore. Couldn't handle the weight of making decisions that might get people killed. The helicopter I flew in Korea, the H-5, they're in museums now, obsolete, replaced by better helicopters, faster ones, ones with armor and weapons. I saw one in a museum once, Air Force Museum in Ohio. Couldn't look at it for long. Started having a panic attack right there in the museum. Had to leave. That was 10 years ago. Haven't been back to any aviation museum since. Korea is still there, still divided along the 38th parallel. The same border we were fighting over in 1952. 23 years later, and nothing's changed. Same border, same tensions, same stalemate. All those deaths, all those rescue missions, all those crew members who didn't come back. For what? For a border that's exactly where it was when the war started? The math never worked out. It never made sense. We saved pilots. That was important. That mattered. Every pilot we brought home was someone's son, someone's brother, someone's father. They went on to have lives, have families, have futures. But so did the crew members we lost. They could have had lives, too. Could have had families, could have had futures. O'Brien was engaged. Did I mention that? Girl back in Boston. They were going to get married when he got home from Korea. Had it all planned out. She came to his funeral. I saw her from a distance. Couldn't approach her. Couldn't face her. What was I supposed to say? That I was sorry? That he died a hero? That the mission was successful? The mission was successful. That's what the report said. That's what the medal citation said. That's what they told O'Brien's mother and his fiancée. Successful mission. One pilot saved. One crew member killed. One helicopter destroyed. Success 23 years later, and I still can't make that math work out. I'm 47 years old. I've lived longer since Korea than I'd lived before it. Should give perspective. Should make it feel like ancient history. But I'm still there. Still in that valley north of the 38th parallel. Still trying to get the helicopter out. Still watching O'Brien bleed. Still feeling the helicopter shake from the bullet hits. Still fighting to keep us in the air. Still failing to bring him home. The rescue pilots in Korea, we had a motto. That others may live. That was our mission. That was our purpose. We risked our lives so that others could live. Noble sentiment. Good words for a medal citation. But some of us died so that others could live. And those of us who survived carry the weight of that. Carry the guilt. Carry the knowledge that we're alive and they're not. And there's no good reason for it except random chance and bad luck. O'Brien died saving Hutchins. Hutchins went on to have a career, a family, a life. Was it worth it? Was O'Brien's life worth Hutchins' life? How do you answer that question? How do you make that calculation? You don't. You just carry it. Every day, every night, in your dreams and your memories and your guilt. 23 years and I'm still carrying it. Still trying to save O'Brien. Still trying to get the helicopter out. Still trying to change what can't be changed. Still trying to make the math work out. It never does. That others may live. Beautiful words. But some of us died. And some of us just stopped living while our hearts kept beating. I don't know which is worse.